Hey, welcome. All right, let me see if I'm all synchronized here. All right, that one's going. Looks like. Welcome. Cool. Sorry about that. All right. Just give this a little time, some folks to join here, and I'll just be a minute. Won't be very long actually on setup here. I'm almost done. There. Sorry if you hear my voice in the background again one more time. That should be it for that. Okay. Oh no. All right. Cool. And let's get the chat. All right. I'm all good. All right. Thanks for joining. All right. I don't know how long I want to spend on this one, but it's been brought up multiple times. And the other day, when I saw this footage of Blue Origin, I really felt compelled to chime in sooner than later, because the whole thing just feels like, why look, our space program is experiencing a lot of challenges as it is. And so I have this part of me that's thinking to myself, do I really, how do we improve as a country? How do we really get back to where we need to be? If I personally sit back and go, well, maybe the feel good story that makes everybody feel hopeful about space travel is just something that you should just sort of leave alone and, let those people dream and not interfere with their dream excessively. But when you see such crude examples of like what went on with this Blue Origin flight, how anyone involved would like really think that this would be something that would like charm most of the world or even part of it, I don't know. To me, it just struck me as really, the whole exercise felt kind of obscene, to be honest with you. But why? Basically because anybody who's been familiar with Amazon's impact on an area knows that they basically just don't have to pay a lot of taxes. They, as a business, and Jeff Bezos as an individual, they can kind of negotiate with various places they go in to do business at, and basically make them, well, not make them, but kind of, make different make, I could say, like different counties or states or whatever compete for like a warehouse or something like that. So sorry, got a visitor here, but they make them compete, for like what do you want to call it? Like if they want to put a warehouse someplace or something like that, or a call center, for example, they'll say to like, two states that are side by side, like, well, what incentives do you have if we're going to bring this many jobs to your state? Are you going to give us free road access? You're not going to make us pay for all those plumbing improvements, are you? You guys are going to foot the bill on everything we need, right? It's that kind of thing where they just sort of like make them do everything, and they don't have to pay for much of anything for their startup costs under this whole guise of, well, we're going to bring all these jobs. And then they're thinking to themselves, well, if all these jobs are brought in, then that means more tax-paying citizens that are in the taxpayer base, and great, I guess that works for everybody. So, but that's the alleged reason why. But unfortunately, it seldom really works out to the where I think they get a true return on their investment. But say, for example, that, look, I'm not going to tell you that every single time a deal like that is bad or anything like that. I mean, sometimes it makes sense, I guess. There may be a good reason why a city might offer or roll out the carpet for, or a county or a state or whatever, for one of these businesses to come to them and do business there. That's if they're paying taxes. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? If they're paying taxes and they're actually doing something to add jobs to everything. But more and more, you're just noticing that, like, in some of these cases, they're told that they don't have to pay taxes for over a decade after entering the state and things like that. And, no person ever gets these kind of incentives as an individual to do anything. So you have to ask yourself, why does this billionaire class constantly get it? And, after after they accumulate all of this wealth and everything like that, of course, they start, looking to us to say, hey, look at the way we're going to lead your space program and to, take everybody to the stars and to the, but the reality of it is it's really selling us on their dream of going somewhere else, escaping all of this mess that's been sort of like, left behind by the likes of a lot of the above. I just don't buy, honestly. I find like a guy like Elon, for example. I mean, look, when you see the guy in an interview and you hear him basically like that, I understand why he's so likable. I understand why people find the guy charming, or they think that the guy's cool or whatever, or they would defend his positions. It kind of makes sense to me, guys. And I think if you're thinking of it in terms of like having your hero and having people compete to get into space, and like what this whole drama, because it is a drama that's really being played out in front of us. This whole thing is theater, where you have Jeff Bezos in charge of Blue Origin going against the Elon Musk of SpaceX. Who's got the bigger rocket? Right? The observation has been made many times. Some of you have even contacted me recently about this exact thing. So yeah, good observations. I've noticed this too, right? This whole thing going on with their symbolism with the rockets, and the whole phallic thing going on, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. I guess there's a shape that a rocket's going to be that's just unavoidable. But yes, they're playing on this whole idea of who's got the bigger rocket and whatnot. So and trying to kind of like bring everybody in this, I guess you could say, this greater whatever competition of back and forth of this versus that. But the problem I have with it, I guess, is that I've always kind of felt like Jeff Bezos was sort of the chosen evil pirate to lead Amazon, a company that was going to be never likable by anybody. It's just an impossible to like company. It's the kind of company that even, hang on, starting to choke as I do this, strangely. They're an impossible to like company. Nobody really enjoys actually doing business with Amazon that I know. And again, even if you like think that they have good shipping or whatever else like that, it's not like anybody's like really excited that they're doing business with Amazon. They don't feel like, wow, what an American icon, what a gem that's just the pride of whatever. Because I want you to think about what Amazon truly represents, folks. It really was just sort of like a whole bunch of individual businesses' dreams being absorbed into one sort of megalithic, monolithic slab of a black hole of a company that is Amazon. All their storefronts absorbed effectively into one company, where no one really is themselves anymore. You just have to be a part of Amazon if you expect to have any kind of exposure to the whole world. And then even then, it's really going to be, what does Amazon decide to do with your individual things? As you know, guys, a lot of people have issues with Amazon relative to free speech, which is to say that there's been issues where people that were publishers that wanted to put their book on Amazon had strong suspicions that their information, or rather their books, were being suppressed, or they weren't being promoted the way that they should, or that they were simply just being hidden from people who are trying to find them, things of that nature. And when you get down to a point where everybody's kind of like, hey, man, eventually businesses are just going to get absorbed and larger ones are going to take over economies. It's just the nature of whatever. I get it, guys. But see, should we all be like subsidizing it? It'd be one thing if these things were just doing it on their own. But it's as if we've all been told that this is just sort of the natural order of the way businesses absorb other businesses, yet it wouldn't be done without all of us subsidizing it. And none of these people would even be allowed to exist without us subsidizing them. And then when you investigate it at the level that I have, you just start realizing that some of these people just really aren't who they say. It's just one day a magic wand got waved and suddenly these characters existed and they started promoting them. That's why, like, for example, like I just did my last article, guys, on the Freedom Phone, and they have this new guy, what is his name, Eric Finman. See, these whole like Bitcoin billionaire like dream stories of people like suddenly achieving all of this wealth overnight, and them having these names that are a little bit like, and stories and unique personalities and the glasses, and I don't know, guys. Why don't we see through these things anymore? Why is there anybody who even believes that any of this is even the reality at all? I guess it's because everybody wants to be the other one who can actually tap into that wealth. And so they're always afraid of pissing off these characters that are never accessible to them. And so they just feel like they have to toe the line and always be like, well, you know, I don't want to piss off the almighty billionaires out there that someday might just bestow their wealth on me. Really? I mean, guys, I mean, a lot of these people have that ability, but you just don't see them doing it. They could actually be changing people's lives exponentially. They could be buying homes left and right for people. They could be, you know, completely renovating entire neighborhoods and districts and whatever like that in ways that are sustainable and actually to where they wouldn't just be dumping money into it. They would be something where the money could actually, you know, it would just be the starter funds that would create something that's sustainable and would continue to generate revenue or at least cover the costs of existing. You know, a lot of these billionaire class people have the ability to wave magic wands and create realities like that left and right, and they just simply don't do it. And that's why I just don't buy into this whole legend of these billionaires being these benevolent ones. As far as I can tell, nearly all of them that I've researched wind up just leading back to being buffer characters for a larger family, a mafia that never admits that they're billionaires and trillionaires and whatever else they are. They just simply divide up their wealth that they've accumulated illegally using, you know, money laundering vehicles and artificial intelligence, just buying up companies using money laundering fictions and money laundering names that of people that never existed. Or somebody dies, but they just don't let them die on the record. They'll change their birth date from one year to another, and the person becomes reinvented, and a new person is assigned that person's, that, you know, dead person's name again. They become alive again in the records. And so this has been going on for decades and decades, which is why, like, guys, when I talk about COVID, I say cover ID, because that's a large part of what's going on here. Guys like Bezos, I think, personally, my opinion is Bezos is one of these buffer characters. Elon Musk is a buffer character. These are people that have always existed to be actors that pretend to run companies that they don't actually invent or actually, you know, create the invention of nearly ever. They're placed in front of them as a lightning rod. They're buffers. They're buffers. Okay. Great. Are some of these buffers more human than others? Sure. Are some of these buffers just outright jerks and assholes that are designed to troll us right to our faces? Absolutely. So I use the example of the SpaceX versus Blue Origin to sort of show you how it's a good cop versus bad cop, but it really just basically leads back to the same group of people that all pretend to be middle class, but they just absolutely are not. There's just a bunch of these families that exist that have been controlling things from the sidelines for a very long time in ways that most people aren't aware can be done. And it's just simply done by creating these fictions that become reality to everybody in America and beyond. And they're literally made up things that they're able to populate into records hyper realistically, fake histories, fake parents' names, all the documentation to make this fictional person a reality once they're put in charge of these other companies. And then you can see like the value of having an Elon Musk, and then he would just be like somebody you could throw in charge of a tunneling company and a space company, which to me, if you know what secret space is about down below. They point up, but they're doing things down below. They get you to spend money on things that go up, and they spend a good chunk of it down below. As above, so below. John Travolta. And all that occulted nonsense. Yes, because can we get real, folks? There is no space program without the occult. Nearly everything about the origins of our space program was from people who are certifiably admitted dark magic practitioners and occultists. I'm just being real with you. Hang on really quick. Sorry about that. My door was open. I didn't realize it. And I was talking a little bit loud, but but certifiably run by dark magic occultists since the origins of the program by Jack Parsons of the Jet Propulsion Lab, JPL. And then Jet Propulsion Lab went on to basically have all the fuel and, the fuel for the rockets that wound up being used by, NASA, the early origins of NASA. And then if you do more research, and I have articles here within my material, I might even play some tonight, I don't know, but that'll tell you more about Jack Parsons and his relationship to Aleister Crowley, who basically considered Jack Parsons his number one adept, the one he wanted to take over Ordo Templi Orientis, which is a sex magic religion connected to Thelema that was invented effectively, well, not invented, but I would say expanded upon radically by Aleister Crowley. And why am I mentioning all this? It's because if you don't get that the dramas that these people create all have their origins, the same people that were connected to the early space program, what we're seeing is multi-generational iterations of this sort of like dark magic dramas and theaters that are played out in front of all of us very, very realistically with a great deal of resources behind them. But if you don't get their occulted nature, why they go out of their way to make these things look like phallic symbols. I mean, they're not just making them look like phallic symbols like a little bit or because of pure aerodynamics. They're not just making these statements about penis envy back and forth or hinting at it between Bezos and Elon, right? It's by design. They want you to think about these things. They're getting you to think of it sexually. And that's leading back to the whole occulted nature of our space program within the United States of America. And then when you just get into the fact that once you bridge Jack Parsons as the American portion of it, who was, talking with Aleister Crowley very heavily, getting involved with Ordo Templi Orientis, he had a partnership in America with two very high-ranking occultists. And that would be, well, let me put it this way, not a high-ranking occultist, but one, yes, Marjorie Cameron, heavy practitioner, was involved with multiple mystic religions, very, very much into the occult and things that would be considered satanic, yeah. And to her own admission, I believe. If you look up Marjorie Cameron, you'll see all this. And so she was hanging out with Jack Parsons and, yes, L. Ron Hubbard of the Church of Scientology, the founder of the Church of Scientology, very controversial, okay? All of these people were hanging out, and this was a big part of the early formation of our space program, whether people want to admit to this or not. It's just the reality, and all the documentation is there. And these people were really doing some pretty dark things, and the things that weren't straight up dark were just bizarre, ridiculous, and yeah, I mean, look, guys, people have their kinks and everything like that, but these guys were just like dudes staring at each other, while they did things on tablets, put it that way, on just inanimate objects and tablets and everything like that. And that was part of their rituals between L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons. Just for examples, guys, sorry to be, whatever. But that's why I kind of look at sometimes at like the whole Scientology thing, like, have none of you guys looked into this? Because I'm not spreading like rumor here or some nonsense or something that's unverifiable. This is pretty well known. If you just look into it, there's like actual documentation upon who he was married to, her connection, Northrop. There was Sarah Northrop, who was connected to all this. She had a sister that married Jack Parsons, and then Jack Parsons winds up leaving his wife for her younger sister, who at a young age was already involved with their sex magic cult, which is, trippy, guys. Like, these are all the people that were connected to it. These are their morals, ethics, and values. Okay, I'm not trashing on NASA and everybody else or anything like that for any particular reason, guys. It's just that if you really don't know this, that you have these people that were into this dark magic occultism, they didn't really have a lot of boundaries. They were bringing in underage women, just so you know, like girls. I mean, she was 13. Sarah Northrop was. And I have all the records on this, guys, and you can look this up. And then they eventually, Jack Parsons and like L. Ron Hubbard had this really bizarre relationship, and they were doing all these weird rituals. And then Jack Parsons wound up getting left by Sarah Northrop, who went off with L. Ron Hubbard. who proceeded to abuse her for years, I guess, in their marriage. And he's even denied even having, like, you know, I mean, it's the records are there, and he'll admit that I guess he was married to her, but he kind of does it in this way, like, yeah, I was married to her, but I'd rather forget it. But I wasn't married to her, but she thinks I was, but I wasn't. But, you know, it's this really weird thing where they kind of F with the lady's head. That's one of the reasons why I've always had a big question mark, honestly, about Scientology, just beyond like whatever other weirdness they have going on there. Once you learn all this about how close he was to Jack Parsons and how Aleister Crowley even considered L. Ron Hubbard to be reckless and crazy for doing some of these sex magic rituals with Marjorie Cameron. They did something that he called the Babylon working, where they were trying to invoke a child without actual procreation. The child would be born through the sex magic rituals, but it wouldn't be like a, it wouldn't be an actual, like, how do I say it? Like, I guess a child would be born somehow, like an immaculate conception, something like if you think about it, guys, it's very black mass in nature, where they do a reversal, like a satanic reversal on something that's more of a religious doctrine or a religious story or parable. So like within the Bible, for example, they would want to do something where they take that whole parable and do a reversal on it. So like how Mary is an immaculate conception of Jesus, they would want to do something with their moonchild and their Babylon working ritual, where it's an inversion of the Christian mythos, or well, what they would consider a mythos, but where they would be taking that part of the Bible and spinning it around and creating like the same story, but through, you know, dark magic, the Babylon working. So that's my understanding of it, guys. That's kind of what's at the origins of our space program, where the guy who invented the jet fuel largely, or did a lot of the innovations behind it, JPL, that went into NASA, there you go. And then once you get past that, you have Wernher von Braun, and he was an Operation Paperclip lead of a whole series of Operation Paperclip scientists. And if you know what that is, that's simply that they were all Nazi SS. They were Germans. They were basically brought here reluctantly to be absorbed into America's space program. And if you think that they were all doing it on the up and up, and they were like, hey, I'm here in America, go USA, I love the USA. Yep, screw that old Hitler and those Nazis. Yep, we're here in the United States, and we're doing everything on the up and up for America. You can trust Wernher von Braun and a whole team of Nazi SS scientists. Why would we ever lie to you? Yeah, never occurred to you? And all their bloodlines were provided cover, right? You think that they're going to let everybody in the world know who the children of these Nazi scientists are? Do you really think that that's going to happen, guys? Really? No, they're going to hide them. The only problem is that cover was abused, obviously, and like a whole bunch of these people have hidden wealth, and then they just have to make up a name, and then they get cover, and then this is the way it seems like they've been hiding American Nazis, as they get to run corporations all the time. And I'm not saying that Elon Musk and Bezos are Nazis, no. I don't think it really works that way, to be honest with you guys. I don't think the Nazis would place themselves as the heads of what do you want to call it? I don't think they would put themselves as the heads of these corporations oftentimes, but I think they would want to have people that are very charismatic, that would actually gain the confidence of the American population, but be ultimately controlled by people that are more closer to those von Braun Operation Paperclip scientists. Because once you really peel back the layers, guys, you have to really think about, how do contracts get handed from group to group, especially when they're done in secret? You got to know somebody. You got to be related to somebody. You got to be somebody who was in there from the beginning. And the people that were in there from the beginning are all Nazi SS. End of story. Absolutely true. Documented history in our country. 100% fact, undeniable. Just saying. All of this is true. So when I see a guy like Bezos, who I feel like is, again, I looked into his thing and I'm like, this guy's fake. Bezos, BlackBerry Enterprise Server Operating System, AWS is the whole cloud computing thing that's been doing all the effery. I mean, nearly everything leads back to these Amazon Web Services clouds. That when I do the research, it's the things that are being done with it, storing people's ROM file images from their smartphones en masse on the AWS clouds, how people's phones are able to get hacked in through those AWS clouds. I think that's connected somehow to this Pegasus hack. There's something that's way more coordinated and allowed, where I think people's ROM file images of their smartphones are literally accessible on an AWS server in a pretty large scale. And I think it's easy to gain it just by a person plugging their phone into a wall outlet, and there's some hack in to where they can just basically just create like as long as it stays plugged into the wall, there's some way to backdoor that as a Ethernet over power connection. And to where the phone recognizes it as Ethernet over power rather than just simply power through the USB port, because I think that it has that capability of doing it, and it's not something that's widely known. Getting to a whole nother topic there, guys. But anyways, I've done that technology explanation, but I think that as I was revealing a lot of the whole correlations between how Bezos was just part of this larger whatever was like over a year ago. And then it's funny, like as I started telling everybody about the AWS and the, Bezos and the Bezos, I did this whole article in Vegas like last year while I was doing my field reports there. I'd say it was like about January, February, March timeframe, maybe even earlier than that, of 2020. And then here he is, he's announcing his retirement from Amazon and saying that he's going to go into space, and he's suddenly having all of America fund this ridiculous zero gravity mission where it's a syndicated feed of his cameras launching him and these. I mean, are you serious, you guys? Really? Can I trust a thing I see from any of these people? Can I even trust that they even went into zero gravity the way they say? I don't believe much of anything coming from these people. I think they just love to put on big shows and laugh in our faces over and over again, because they've got to have a reason why they spend so much money in one place at one time that winds up actually going on other, assigned to other things. But they've got to have something that's put in front of all of us to make us think that it's about that, when they're actually spending it on things that are going way down underground. Just a word for y'all that are doing your secret space underground and everything, how you point up and get us all to spend money on things up while you actually spend it underground. You don't seem to understand this shit that people like me know about you and what's going to happen to y'all. And so the sooner you make nice, I would say, with those of us who know what's going to happen to you, the better. Because here's what kind of goes on. See, rather than you using people like I know you've been doing, just a little hint for some people that are using some kind of, funky technology to F with people's heads, I think. You need to start compensating people for what they contribute to the plasma field relative to your terms and to your names and all your numbers and everything else like that, especially a certain SpaceX CEO. It's not really cool, like effing with people's heads with technology and getting them to repeat your terms and your things. Your Neuralinks and things like that. See, because what that's been doing, guys, is I think there's some esoteric uses of these technologies that some of these people aren't really admitting to. And, when you understand energetics at the level that I do, you'll start to understand why some people get exploited and never compensated. And I'm just kind of tired of it. And so I'm kind of taking back some layers here of their fictional reality to let certain people kind of know that I'm tired of us getting used. I'm tired of a whole group of us getting used constantly and never compensated and never reimbursed for what we contribute to everybody else. We do a lot. And these jokesters that are behind businesses like this are really just taking something from us. They're taking and they're harvesting it from, guys, I'm talking about other issues and everything, but it applies to all of you. The way these people have achieved what they have is by taking it from all of you. And what we get back in return are lectures, are thanks for making my dreams come true, or whatever else. And, all I'm saying is that when I look at these types of, data sets, like, for example, guys, I found this in more than one case. Now, I don't know if Elon Musk really is this child actor that disappeared after he made like a few movies in the early 80s and late 70s, but he's old enough to be. There's this character that played by Michael Caine in the film The Island by Michael Ritchie. And as I was watching, I'm like going, man, does this guy ever remind me of like a young Elon Musk? It's like, it's really, it's hard for me to get outside of that thought process, knowing how they use this technology. Sometimes, people are child actors and they have them just disappear and everything like that. Nobody knows what happens to them. They just officially retire. Some die early. And then weirdly, like a decade or two later, somebody shows up and you're like, God, that kind of looks like somebody I've seen in a movie before. But no, it says here on Wikipedia that they were born with this name and they're from this country. And hell, if those things say it, I guess it's true. Is it? And I ain't telling you that, like, me saying that this guy looks like the kid who's in The Island that turns on his dad and winds up running everything. I'm not saying that that's necessarily him, but things like that happen, guys. That's the kind of, fictional reality that we currently exist in. That's all. And, it's just something that you kind of have to sort of like expect anymore. Anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight, just on this one thing here. I'm trying not to make all of my presentations like super long, that have like, by adding like tons and tons of topics to each one. And so what I might do is wrap this one up here shortly. And then if I have another topic that I want to do, and I think I do have some other things to bring up, I'll do it in a separate feed. But sometimes I just been, needing more breaks and things like that in between or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up a little bit for your consideration, guys. Think about the origins of our space program and just ask yourself, why would anything have changed since the 40s and 50s if you know how these things all work? They're secret. They're generally top secret, or at least, high level clearance positions that get handed off generation to generation, from agency to friend, from company to company, many of whom have origins with people that were very friendly to the Nazis that came in 1945 via Operation Paperclip, or they were actually directly one of them, or are the offspring of these Operation Paperclip Nazis. So who do you think is always going to be the first ones in the seats of these places? They're always going to be controlled by those paperclips. Always. And America really needs to wake up to this reality, guys. This is the one place where they felt comfortable about hiding kind of in the open. But did they just disappear suddenly after the 40s and the 50s and the 60s? That after von Braun was done with his era, did they just go away? Or are they just hiding a little bit more like in your face while not actually there? Again, guys, doesn't mean that that's what they are, but whoever these folks are, they sure as hell are controlled by them. Anyways, hey, welcome, Lisa. I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining, everything like that tonight. Yeah, I'm going to sign off right now, but I might do another one here either tonight or very shortly tomorrow. All right. Yeah, so that's what I got to say on this one. All right. Have a good night.